Welcome to Devlog number 13 for a space game that my buddy Rich and I are making, along with some collaboration from the community. And this is Missile Pocalypse. That's not the name of the game. It's just, we've been working on the missiles. Now we can spam fire them. We got new physics. We got new particle trail effects. I've turned the speeds down to make it look cooler and more cinematic. And I'm not using my UI, so I'm missing all my shots here. Oh, and the Sea-Wiz are out of ammo. We do have limited ammo for Sea-Wiz, which act as sort of a missile shield in this game. But luckily I made them slow enough that we can easily outrun them. Oh, we're going to fly past the missile mines here, which we will be using in-game as sort of deterrence. And once I turn up the speeds on those missiles, they'll be far more deadly. Well, speaking of deadly, I just died. So this week has been an interesting one. I didn't get as much time to work on the game as I wanted to because I had a bunch of other responsibilities and things come up, but Rich knocked it out of the park, getting all kinds of new features in the game, rewriting the entire missile code, new missile brains. He got cargo working to a better state. He got airlocks opening and closing. We have a new asteroid guy that's helped us get some new asteroid prototypes in the game that we're going to hopefully use as a template for creating massive asteroid bases and new asteroid fields. We have a new guy that's helping us with some volumetric testing in the game, trying to get the performance of clouds and stuff working a bit better. And I had a little bit of time to try and finalize a white box for the pirate Battlecruiser and start concepting out a Nav Beacon, which will play a pretty important role within our game world, and I will explain that in just a little bit. Now, I wanted to talk about the new cargo bay first, and I say new cargo bay, but really, I've had this model finished since just about day one of the game, and we've never had the doors open or a light turn on. Now it finally works. We've got Panzer V1 making some sounds for it too, for the opening and closing system, so I'm excited about that. But basically, I've had the interior and the lights and all that kind of stuff pretty much ready to go, and now it opens, it sheds light on the piece of cargo that we're trying to pick up, sucks it into the bay, and then moves on. Spaceship looting is going to be a really important part of this game. It has to feel good. It has to feel right. There's definitely some tweaks on terms of how the cargo goes into the bay right now that both Rich and I want to refine further. But at the moment, it's actually pretty fun to pick up cargo in space and loot things. And it's going to be even cooler once we have that cargo spawning out of wreckages of ships, or being able to find loot caches and stuff like that hidden around asteroid fields. So not only did Rich animate the doors opening and closing and stuff like that, but he also started adding in some basic properties to inventory and loot. So now when we pick up, say, a fuel canister in space, it will increase the overall fuel meter in our user interface. Currently, this doesn't do anything yet because we don't have fuel hooked up as a in-game mechanic, but we will soon. And so looting fuel, ammo, repair supplies, valuables, weapons, all that kind of stuff. We're starting to build out the proto layer for loot tables and looting and all that fun stuff that I'm really excited about. And in the same vein of cargo doors, we also have the airlock now auto opening when it gets close to an airlock it can connect to. We might change the mechanics of this slightly, but we're going to try it on a proximity system to begin with and make sure that's not too annoying where your airlock is extending when you don't want it to. That's what we want to avoid. But the next step to this, and something that I think Rich thinks we can do fairly soon, would be to actually initiate the docking procedure. This is something that I'm so pumped about because this is also going to be a very big part of the game. Docking at places, downloading data, trading, docking with derelict or disabled ships and looking at their cargo, transferring that cargo over to your ship. That is also going to be a huge part of the game. It has to be fun, has to look cool, has to just have a nice tactile feeling to it when it occurs. So I'm really excited to dial in that stuff too. There's probably going to be a little bit more progress on that in the next few weeks. Now, we've also got a new guy helping us build out some asteroids. This is John Logostini. He's actually got a YouTube channel, which I would recommend checking out. He's a really smart dude. I'm not even sure on the extent of his capabilities within Unreal Engine, but him and his brother, I guess, do a bunch of game dev stuff on the side. Not entirely sure what all the projects are that they're working on, but he's been making us these cool new asteroids and basically helping me develop a new workflow for asteroids. Basically, I need to be able to make asteroids specific shapes and sizes if we want to do big asteroid bases or big asteroid caves and larger asteroid structures and still have them look like they belong as part of the asteroid field. Things have to kind of use similar textures and stuff like that. He's working on a really optimized and efficient way for doing that for us. And so these are some of the first asteroids that he's made. There's also a chance that him and his brother might be working with us on some of the asteroid base concepts a bit further too, with some of these little asteroid communities with buildings and docks and windows and ports and all that kind of stuff. It requires a bit of asset design, and so they might be involved in some of that as well. Excited to work with him more. Now, definitely a big focus of this week was missiles. We were jokingly calling it Missile Week just because of the amount of work that was being done on missiles. I added in some little missile particle trails and a little particle bloom at the end of the missile, which are, add some flair to it, but the real work was done by Rich, which involved rebuilding all the missile code and adding in a cool missile brand. I'm going to let him explain it because honestly, I don't understand. I'm excited to hear what he has to say.
We did a lot of revamping with missiles this week, including missile pods and the missiles themselves. We've got a completely new missile rebuilt from the ground up. We did away with the built-in projectile movement and the homing that it does in favor of rewriting a fully custom homing system. So now it's a little bit more predictable. It has a constant top speed, so it's kind of works better together with our point defense systems to make everything more predictable. We want the point defenses to be like a pretty reliable shield, but even better than that, the missiles will now lead their target rather than chasing them and resulting in the weird orbiting that we would sometimes get. There's still a lot of work to do on those, but having these fully custom missiles with custom movement will enable us to do some pretty cool stuff with missiles, different missile types, different types of movement, missiles that stop and retarget or move around things. Besides the missiles themselves, we wanted to think about the missile pods. Ships can have a number of missile pods. Like the patrol ship just has one, but we've got this destroyer ship with 3 missile pods. We've also got a cruiser or a light cruiser with 8 missile pods. We'll have a battleship. We don't know how many missile pods is the maximum yet, but we've built a system to control any number of missile pods. I call it the missile pod's brain for now. It's just like the point defense's brain that I've talked about before. Its job is to coordinate all the missile pods and decide how best to use the missile pods in an efficient way. Just like with point defenses, there's a lot of different factors to think about. You want to set your volley size to 4, and now, so when you push the fire button, it'll fire 4 missiles. But where do those 4 missiles come from? We need to decide which tubes are the best to fire at that time. Some of the tubes are empty. They haven't been reloaded yet, or are waiting on a full magazine reload, which takes some time. So all the missile pods can be in different states. We don't want the player to have to think about all this stuff. We basically just want the player to think about how much ammo they have and are they about to trigger a full magazine reload, which takes a while. We want to have a really intelligent missile system, but keep the fun factor high so that the player doesn't have to constantly think about all these numbers.
So the progress on missiles has been massive, and it's already translating into cooler, more fun gameplay that I'm having a fun time tweaking the missile health and the projectile health and what feels good and all that kind of stuff. I love getting into the numbers of that, so that's been enjoyable. On my side, I have that pirate Battlecruiser sort of white boxed and ready to at least test in game. I haven't built out the engines or the custom cargo bay or the custom airlock for it just yet, so it's got some more modules that it needs, but it's going to help us test those 8 missile pods once we get there. That'll be exciting to see a volley of 32 missiles go off at the same time and see if anything can defend against that. I also did a quick concept of a Nav Beacon, which will be an important structure or station in our games. The Nav Beacons will essentially create a custom gravitational field that other ships will be able to lock onto to jump to them using their jump drives. If there isn't a nav beacon or something making a custom gravitational field, they won't be able to jump to a destination. And so these structures will essentially be at the end of any sort of jump destination, but you will also be able to discover them as you explore a solar system and either activate them or download the data from them, and that will populate your map with a new jump location. So you find a secret asteroid field somewhere that looks like a fun spot to explore and loot and fight pirates, and you might want to come back to it later. Well, if you find the nav beacon, you can mark that location essentially and always come back to it. So I like the idea of once you find them, having to go dock with them, that will auto download the nav beacon data to your ship, and then you'll just have it. But I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about that gameplay loop in terms of exploration and nav beacons and all that kind of fun stuff. Now, in the last devlog, I talked about some new cool VBD clouds, which stand for volumetric breakdown. It's a newer way of ingesting particle physics into the Unreal Engine, or any 3D program for that matter, but Unreal has just started supporting them more recently. And we have a Discord member who reached out to us after that devlog went out and said, hey, I make clouds in Houdini and I can export them in different resolutions and you guys can test the performance. And I said, great. So he made us a bunch of clouds and we are testing the performance. And basically I got to do some more testing with them to see what works well. It's a bit of a research project right now, is to try and find a performant fog and cloud system that we can throw onto the Steam Deck and not lose 30% of our frame rate. So volumetrics are expensive. I certainly knew that to begin with, but now I'm actually getting to see the actual performance hit whenever I add a new cloud or VDB to the scene. So that's been fun working with Jam. It's great. If he gives me a link, I'll throw it up in the video description in case you want to check out his work. And stay tuned for next week's devlog, because I've decided to do a deep dive into the overall game concept. Don't forget that we also have a Discord where people can jump in and talk about game development with us, and we'll even post snippets and things that we're working on over there, just for people who are really interested in following a lot more of the details of the project. Up next, check out the playlist for our devlog in case you want to go back and see any other sections or cool things that we talk about along the way. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.